Hey guys, what's up? So in this video we're going to be looking at how we can change our user registration form so that we can be able to create users based on our model that we created for our user. We actually didn't create the model, but we used Django's default user model to create users. So now in this case, what we have is a form that basically creates a new object of a user and then stores that object. Now what we're going to do in this video is to use a model form that's given to us by Django, which is the user creation form. Now this model form allows us to create user object with clear validations, as most of the fields are created from our default user model. Now the first thing I'm going to do is to comment out this form and create another form based on our user creation form. So I'm just simply going to come right here and I'll comment this out. And then I'm going to import our user creation form. Now I'll come at the top of our code right here, and all I have to do is to first import our user creation form. So I'll come and say from Django.contrib, and I'm going to access the authentication app. And then within our authentication app, we have forms. Now within our forms, we are going to import our user creation form. Now once we've imported our user creation form, I am going to go ahead and use this user creation form to create another model form for creating our users or signing up. Now I'm just simply going to come right here and I'll create a class, and I'm going to call this the same name that we had for our form. I'm just simply going to call it our user registration form. Now this is going to inherit from our user creation form. And once we have this, I'm going to simply go ahead and write our class. That's going to be a meta class, and within this meta class I'm going to specify our model to be our inbuilt user model. I'm going to go ahead and import that, so I'll just come and import it from Django.contrib.auth. I'm going to come and import it from .models. I'm going to come and import our user model. And once I've done that, I'm simply going to come right here. I'll specify our model to be our user model, and then I'll come and also provide our fields attribute. Now in this case, we're first going to render all the fields that are going to be on this specific model. So I'm just simply going to come right here, and all I have to provide is this danda all, and when I save, our server is going to restart. Now when you head over to our Chrome right here and I refresh, what we're going to have are all the form fields that come on our default sign up screen that Django provides. Now once we have this, we're going to go ahead and customize this so that we only have fields that we shall need to create a user. Now the only fields we need in this video are going to be our username, our email, our password, as well as our password confirmation field. Now when you go back right here, I'm simply going to view our page source. Now viewing the page source allows us to access the HTML that helped us to create our form. Now all I need is to access the name attribute of that specific field that you may want to include within our form, and shall be able to include it within our form. Now the first thing I'm going to need is going to be our username. So I'm just simply going to come right here, and instead of having all, I'm just going to simply create a list. Now this list is going to have all the fields that we shall need to render on our form. So I'm going to first access our username, and once I have our username, I'll also access our email, because that's the name that we have right here on our email address. So it's actually our email. Now we shall also need our password, as well as our password confirmation fields that have password 1 as well as password 2. Now I'll come and change that, so I'll just come and simply provide our password 1, and then I also provide our password 2. Now when I save, our server is okay. So when I head over to our Chrome once again, I'm going to close this for now. When I refresh, we now have the 4 fields that we need to create our users. Now once this is done, we're going to go ahead and style these fields up. So the way we're going to do this is by overriding our user creation form. Now the way we're going to do that is by coming to our forms.py, and all we're going to define is our init function. So the init function is one you can create in case you want to create a blueprint on how you're going to create your different objects of a certain class. Now in this case, what we're going to do is to override the init function of the user creation form, So that will be able to customize the fields that we're going to render for our form. Now I'm just simply going to come right here and create a function called the Danda init function. This is going to take in self as well as a list of positional arguments as well as a dictionary containing our keyword arguments. And once we have that, then we are going to actually call all the methods or return all the attributes that our user creation form has. Now, the way we do that is by using the super keyword. Now, we shall specify that we are going to use our user registration form, we shall include ourselves, and then we call the init function of our specific user creation class. So we shall call the different positional arguments as well as our keyword arguments. And once we have that, then we can be able to access all the fields for our class. Now to do that, we shall come and say self.fields, and this is actually all the fields that our form has. So we can be able to access all these fields by accessing them with the key. So in this case, the key is going to actually be that specific name attribute of that field. Now in this case, if we want to access our username, we shall just come and say user name, and we shall be able to access different attributes such as the widget, the label, and so on. Now let's start with our label. So we're going to customize the label for our username by coming and then accessing dot label, and then we set that label to what we want. In this case, we're going to keep it to your username. So when I save, our server is okay. So when I head over to our Chrome right here, when I refresh, we now have your username as a label for our username field. Now let's go ahead and customize our style. So we're going to do that is by accessing the widget attribute here. So I'll just come and copy our widget attribute. So that's going to be forms.textInput, and then we shall have our class. So I'm just going to come and simply copy this entire statement right here. And what I'll do is to then customize our widget. So I'll just come and say self.fields, and then I'll provide our username, and then I'll access this widget via the .widget attribute, and then I'll come and specify that our widget is going to be forms.textInput, and our attributes are actually going to have that form class control class. So when I save, when I come right here and I refresh, we now have our form field being styled. Our stuff is working. So I'm just going to simply do the same for the remaining fields. So I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to simply come and paste this as well. So I'm just going to paste it 4 times, actually 3 times, because those are the fields we haven't yet done. So once we have this, I'll come and do that same thing for our email. So I'm going to change this to email, and I also change this to your email as our label, and then I'll come within your username. So this is actually going to be for our email. Now when I save, when you go back here, our email has been changed. Things are working the way we want. So I'm going to come right here, and all I have to do is to also customize our password inputs. I'm going to come and say password, and here this is actually going to be our password 1, since this field for our password is the password 1 field that's specified in our fields right here. And then I'll come and also change this to password 1. So once we have that, then I'll change this to your password, which is the label. And I'll also go ahead and do the same thing for our password 2, which is our password confirmation. So I'll just come right here, and all I have to do is password 2. So I'll do the same thing here, and I'll change this to password 2. Now that we have this, I'm also going to come and change this to confirm your password. And once we have this, then we actually need to also specify that these are going to be password inputs because they are not text inputs. I'm just simply going to come right here and change this to password input. Now when I save this, when you head over to our form right here and I refresh, we now have our form styled. Now I'm also going to change the text within our submit button right here. I'm going to simply do that in our signup.html, and then I'll have to change our value to sign up. I'm going to refresh this. Now when I refresh, we now have our value change. Now let's go ahead and use our form to create a simple user. I'm going to provide a user, so I'll start by providing a user. So I'm going to provide a user of Paul Heyman. Now provide the email as paulheyman@gmail.com, and then I'll come and provide the password. So I'll just come right here. I'll provide a simple password. So when I come and sign up, right now we have a key, a value of password. Let's see how this is actually happening. So when you head over to our forms.py, we have a password 1, password 2, specified password 1, password 2. Now let's go ahead and actually check our form. So when you come right here and inspect, I'm actually not going to inspect, but what I'll have to do is to view page source. We have our form and it has the following fields. So we actually have password 1, password 2, email, username. Now let's actually see what is going on. So we have, actually that form is not working because the logic for creating our user has not changed. Now when you go ahead and look at the view that we used to sign up our user, we're getting form data from our post request in form of keys and values. Now this is a bit tricky because now we don't have any validation occurring for the various fields. All we have to change is the names of these fields. Actually, we're going to use our user creation field or our user creation fields to basically save our user without having to get that form data and then creating a new object, just like we did for the previous video. Now I'm going to change this logic, so I'll just come right in here and remove this. Now once I remove this, the next thing we're going to do is to be able to create our instance of our form, which is our registration form. And then we give it the data, that's the data that's going to come from our form during a post request. Now the way I'm going to do this is by saying form is going to be to our post creation form. So I'll just come right here and say this is going to be a post creation form. And once you have the post creation form, I'll just simply come right in here and say that you're going to have request.post, meaning that this form is going to actually have the data as it comes from the post request. Now that we have this, we are going to check for the validity of this form, or if our form is valid. I'll just come right here and say if form dot is valid, and then once we have the form as valid, we shall head over to our saving. So I'll just come and call the save method on our form. And since this is a model form, we shall be able to save our user based on what we've provided within our form. Now once this is done, we shall also need a way to redirect to another page. Now I'm going to simply come, and what I'll have to do is to return, and I'll say redirect, and then we shall redirect to the URL pattern for logging in. So I'll find that in our urls.py in our users app, and that's simply going to be our login URL pattern. Now simply come right here, and all I have to do is to say that we're going to redirect to our login, and I'm going to save. So we're going to go ahead and test this out. I'm going to close this for now, and once I have this, I'm simply going to create another user. So I'll provide a name. So I'll provide our name as Paul Heyman. I'll provide our email, and then provide our password, and then I'll simply come and confirm our password. Now when I sign up, in this case we are being redirected somewhere else. Let's see what's actually happening. When you come right in here, we are seeing that we are being returned to sign up, but let's actually see the fields that we are having, because now we are having fields for another form. That's actually the one we used to create our post. So let's actually see this is actually our post creation form. What we need is going to be our user registration form. Sorry for the mistake I did. So I'm going to call this our user registration form. So I'm going to go ahead and resubmit our form. Now this is actually going to bring us back to our form. Now what we have as a problem here is our form has been submitted, but we cannot keep track of any errors that this form has. Another way we're going to access the errors that this form has is through the form.errors dictionary. So the form.errors dictionary is simply a dictionary that returns each of the fields and the different errors that those fields have. Now let's go ahead and access that. So I'll open up the sign up template, and before we submit our form, let's go ahead and actually see the different errors within our form. So I'll come right here, and what I'll have to do is to check if our form has errors. So I'll do that with form, if form.errors. Sorry for that. Then I'll simply come right here, and all I have to do is to simply create a paragraph, and this paragraph is actually going to have our error. So I'll just come right here and basically provide our error. So I'll just come and say form.errors. Now when I save this, I'm going to come right here, and when I try to submit this form once again, I'm going to provide our password and then confirm our password again. When I submit, we now see that we have our field as our username as well as our error as the user with that username already exists. Now what you want to do is to access that specific field that has that error and be able to display the error on that specific field. Now since we looked over all the fields, what we're going to do is to actually display errors for that specific field. Now to do that, I'm simply going to remove this, and just below our field, I'll simply come right here, and then I'll say if field.errors. Now this can also work on our specific field, so we can also access a dictionary of errors that specific field has. Actually, it's going to be a list of errors that specific field has, and then you can be able to loop over those errors. So we shall say for error in form, actually it's going to be field.errors. What you want to actually do in this case is to return an individual error that field may have. So I'm simply going to create a paragraph, and this paragraph is going to have a class of error, and right in here we shall just have to access the error. So I'll just come and say error. Now I'm simply going to format this a little bit so that we make it a little bit tidy, and after doing this, now I'm simply going to save, and when I save this, when we head over to our Chrome once again, when I refresh and try to submit this form again, what happens is this error actually appears on that specific field that has the error. Now let's style this up with CSS. So I'll head over to our static directory, and that's actually located within our post app. Now within our main.css, I'll simply come here and basically create our class. It's actually not created, but we created it this side, and we're going to use it to access our field and our errors. So when I come here and say .error, I'm just simply going to provide the color of red and then a smaller font size. So I'll just come and say font size, and let's say our font size in this case is going to be 12. Now when I come here and try to resubmit this form, we now see that our errors are actually being shown right here. Now let's try to also do other errors. So for example, if we submit this with an invalid email, and let's say we provide a password that does not match. Now I'm going to provide a certain password that doesn't match. So when we submit, we now see that our different form errors are being shown here. This is beautiful. Now what we're going to actually do is to actually add other links that will allow us to go to the login page in case we have an account, as well as to redirect to the sign up in case we don't have an account. Now simply going to head over to our template right here, and all I'll have to do is to create that link. So I'm just going to come right here and provide a simple form group. It's actually going to be .form group, and once I have that, I'll simply create small text right here. So we're going to do something like already have an account. It's going to be a question, And once we have this, I'm simply going to create an anchor tag, and this is actually going to be a paragraph. So I'll have this small paragraph right here, and I'm simply going to create a paragraph, and I'll paste that in there. Then I create an anchor tag, and then I'll say login. So that will basically lead us to our login. And also attach that to a URL. So I provide the href as URL. Then I'll provide that specific name of the URL pattern for logging in, which is actually login. So when I save and refresh, right now we're going to have that specific link. Now I'm going to do that same thing on our login form. So I'm going to copy this and then paste it within our login form. So when I go to our login form right here, I'll simply come and paste this. Now this is actually going to change to do not have an account, sign up. So we shall just come right here, and all we have to do is to say do not have an account. Then we shall basically take them to the registration page. Now come to the urls.py within our users app, and then we shall access that URL pattern for signing up. So I'll change this to sign up. So I'll change this to create an account, and when I save, I'm going to head over to our page right here. So when I refresh, in this case we're going to go to login, and in case we do not have an account, we're going to create an account here. Now let's try to also add some let's try to create a user to test our form. So I'm simply going to come right here. I'll provide a name. So let's say we're going to have a user called John Doe 23, and then we're going to have their email as John Doe 23 at gmail.com. Now shall provide our password. So I'll provide our password as password, and then I'll confirm our password. So when I try to save this user, we are going to redirect to our login page. Now what we need is a success message in case we have been able to create our user. So for us to create this success message, we're going to use Django's default messaging framework. Now when we are using Django provides for us a messaging framework that we can use to show messages within our app in case something has happened. Now what you're going to do is to simply create a message that will be shown in case a user has been created. I'm going to head over to our views within our users app, and what I'll have to do is to create a message in case a user has successfully been created. So we shall come right here, and what I'll have to do is to import our messages from Django. So I'll come and say from Django dot, in this case it's going to be contrib, we shall import our messages. And after doing that, then we're going to create a simple message that we shall show within our template on successfully creating a user. So this is actually going to be within our sign up. So I'll just come right here, and after saving our user, we're going to create a message. So I'll just say messages dot add. Actually it's going to be dot success, and then this message takes in a request and takes in the message, just like we see here, taking the request as well as the message, which is a string. So in this case, we're going to take in our request object as well as our message. And in this case, we're just simply going to say user created successfully on our login page. And right after doing that, then we shall show this message in our template. Now that we're going to show this message is by looping through our messages that we'll have created. I'm simply going to go to our login page right here, and before our h1, I'm simply going to create an if statement that shall check for our messages. So I'll come right here, and all I have to do is to check if our messages exist. So I'll come and say if messages. Then I'm simply going to come right here and then loop through all the messages. So I'll just come and say for messages. I'm going to come and say for messages. So this is actually going to be for message in messages. Now we are going to just simply create a paragraph right here, or I'll simply create an li. Let me just call it a paragraph, and I'll give this a class of alert. And right in here, I'll simply provide the message. So I'm just going to come right here and provide our message. Now, when you head over to our templates and try to create a new user in this case, when I head over to our create account template, I'm just simply going to come and add a username. So let's say we're going to add our username as user123, and we're going to provide our email as user123@company. So just going to say company.com. And when I come and provide our password, I'm simply going to confirm our password again. And once we provide our sign up, our user is going to be created. And right now we can see our successful alert message. Now let's go ahead and also style this up so that it can actually appear more appealing. So I'll just simply come to our main.css, and what I'll have to change is going to be our alert. So I'll just simply come here and say .alert. So I'll provide the padding, and this padding is actually going to be of 20 pixels, and then we shall provide the background color. So let's actually call this light green, and then let's provide a color of white, and then we can even say that we're going to have this as aligned in the center. So let's try to actually check this out. So right now alert is not showing up, but let's say we created a new user account. So I'm going to delete some of the users we created. I'm going to go to our localhost 8000, and then I'll try to access our admin. So I'll provide our admin username. So I'll come and say admin, and then provide our password right here, and then log in. So I'll go to our users, and what I'll do is to delete some of the users we created right here. So I'll just come and delete them, just come and tick them, and then when I come right here, I'll delete the selected users and then go. So I'll say yes, I'm sure. This will delete all the users that we have right here. So when you try to create a new user based on the credentials we've had, for example, Paul Heyman, I'll come and create the user of Paul Heyman, a password. So I'll provide our password, and then I'll confirm our password once again. I'll try to sign up. Actually, we see our CSRF token failed. Let's actually try to refresh this page once again. So I'll try to create this user again. So I'll provide Paul Heyman, the email, the password. Then we shall provide our password again. And when you sign up, right now we see our successful alert message showing up. In this video, we've been able to look at the user creation form in Django and how it can allow us to create users based on our existing user model. We've also looked at how we can use it for helping us to validate the data we enter into our user creation form. Thank you for watching, guys, and if you've enjoyed this video, please like and don't forget to comment. Tell me what you feel about this video. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you're new. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye.